We are thrilled to continue our series with the Athletic writers by welcoming on one of their lead NFL writers, Sheil Kapadia. You can find him at Sheil Kapadia on Twitter. He previously covered the Eagles for the Athletic, as well as the Seahawks over at ESPN. Sheil, thank you so much for joining me today, man. How are you doing?
Yeah, no problem. Good to be here. We got some preseason action, training camps in full swing. So I always enjoy this time.
Exactly. And you're actually on the road joining me, right? You're bouncing around, if I remember correctly, some training camps and different things.
That's right. Yeah, I'm doing a little training camp tour that just wrapped up. So I just saw the Colts Panthers joint practices, and so stopped in Columbus, Ohio on my way home, spent the night, and now driving back home to Philadelphia. So yeah, you're keeping me company on this long drive.
I love to. I'm glad to be the company for you here. I know that's not the agenda of our preview here. We're actually going to be talking about the most intriguing players of 2021, which is an awesome article. You can find all of Sheil's work again over at The Athletic. That one just dropped. Was an awesome read. But I just want to ask, was there a camp in your tour that really stood out, and or a player too?
That's a good question. I don't think there was like really an offensive player who really stood out. I mean, it was interesting seeing Odell Beckham Jr. At Browns camp. Now he was not doing everything. He's not participating in team drills, but certainly, during the individual portions of practice, the beginning, I'm not a doctor or a trainer or anything, but he looked pretty healthy to me. Good. And when you just look at that offense and whether they're going to regress or I guess take a leap to kind of the next level here, he certainly is one of the key players to watch. So I thought it was interesting seeing him out there and seeing if him and Baker Mayfield can finally sort of get on the same page here in 2021.
Yeah, absolutely. He's in fact on that list that I was just referencing, your 25 most intriguing players. In addition to that, I just wanted to shout out your 2021 NFL playbook. I was digging into it all the last couple of days. There is so much good stuff in there where you do a deep dive into every single team, loaded with so many great analytics on both sides of the ball, nearly 200 pages of stuff to keep everyone busy out there. I just wanted to make sure, I'd love to dive into every team with you, but I think we need the rest of the summer based on how deep you go in that guide. So we'll turn our attention to the list, but I did want to shout that out for everybody listening. It is such a great resource. So Sheil, thank you so much for putting that together. It's provided me plenty of filler here as we get towards the NFL season. It's amazing, amazing content.
Yeah, thank you. I think either people really like it or it puts them to sleep. So it serves its purpose one way or the other. And if people are interested, they can go to theathletic.com/NFL playbook. You can download it there. If you don't subscribe to The Athletic, you can just subscribe through that link. And in addition to the playbook, of course, you get all the fantastic content from The Athletic. So that's just an easy way to get to it is theathletic.com/NFL playbook.
Awesome. Make sure you guys listening here, check that out. Now, Sheil, while you were doing that deep dive, again, I keep saying we're going to get to those intriguing players, which we will, but I did want to ask, was there like a team on that list of all the 32 that you were either most surprised or intrigued by as you really started to dig into the numbers?
I think the most interesting piece of research I did on that was just looking into rookie quarterbacks. And so this applies to obviously a few different teams, the 49ers, the Bears, the Jaguars, the Jets, and just looking at, hey, over the last 10 years, when these guys have gotten into games, rookie quarterbacks, how have they performed? Because I think we all get excited. We have the draft and we say, wow, well, they drafted this guy, they solved that problem, and this guy's going to come in and take the league by storm. But I wanted to find out, does that often happen? And the truth is it doesn't often happen. I just looked at the last 10 years. And if you look at it on average, like the rookie quarterbacks who actually play, they usually perform like the 21st or 23rd ranked starter in that rookie season. And I think really it was about 23% of the time, I think it was 7 out of 31 quarterbacks actually just performed at an above average level in their first season. So just applying that to this season, you look at somebody like Trey Lance, and I think everybody's excited about Trey Lance. I'm excited about Trey Lance, but you just look at sort of the rate there. How likely is it that he comes in and is sort of this year's version of Justin Herbert? There's probably like I said, about a 23% chance that happens. So I think that kind of thinking has to weigh into somebody like Kyle Shanahan his decision. And then you look at a team like the Bears with Justin Fields, right? And you say, well, that's probably going to be, that average is probably going to be better than what you're going to get with Andy Dalton. So as long as you're not worried about a guy like Justin Fields falling into bad habits, then maybe it does make sense to kind of throw him out there and get him that experience. So that was just one thing that stood out to me.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that's a perfect segue because on your list of 25 most intriguing players, you have both of those guys in your top 10 at 7 for Justin Fields and 6 for Trey Lance, respectively. I'm on board with saying at least one of these two. And it sounds like based on your odds, it probably won't be both. But I really think in fantasy wise, they're falling to round 11, 12 sometimes. And I think fantasy wise, but given the rushing upside both have, they could be league winners down the stretch if and when they ever take over. So it sounds like only one of them would be a league winner. Do you have one of the two that you feel stronger about, or what are your why do you find them so intriguing? What are you kind of expecting of these guys?
Yeah, I would gamble on Trey Lance over Justin Fields at this point. And it's for what you just mentioned. If you've heard Kyle Shanahan talk this offseason, or even back when they drafted Trey Lance, he is so intrigued by the idea of using the quarterback as part of the run game. And of course, we're seeing this more and more across the league. And we saw Kyle Shanahan do that with RG3, of course, back in Washington. But it's just a completely different skill set compared to what he has with Jimmy Garoppolo. So I think if Trey Lance gets in there, he doesn't have to complete 65, 70% of his passes. He doesn't have to be this ultra efficient passer right away, because I think that, we know with Kyle Shanahan that he believes in sort of this diverse run game. He's sort of a savant with the run game. And so to have a quarterback be a part of that, whether it's option runs or design runs with Trey Lance, I really believe that would be a huge part of what he would do if Trey Lance got in the game. And so I think that would offer some real upside, where now all of a sudden, if he is better than expected as a passer, you throw in the run game stuff. And like you said, all of a sudden you might have a league winner or a guy who gives you high upside who you took probably later in your draft.
Exactly. Yeah, I actually had Ted Winover from The Athletic as well earlier this week. And he was really diving deep into the X's and O's of what Shanahan might do with Trey Lance with these, like you mentioned, the option runs. And he was just so stunned at how great of a north-south runner Trey Lance is too. It's like a bruiser. He's so big and he gets down there like a running back. He was saying 1,100 rushing yards is in college. It was crazy. So yeah, I think that's the one I'd place my bets on too. Plus the passing game, a little more friendly with so much yak opportunities with all those guys there. So I'm with you there. I'm betting on Lance over Fields if I have to take one for fantasy, but either way, I don't want to leave my drafts without one or the other, because I do think they both drip in so much upside. Another rookie actually kicks off your list at 25, and that's Kyle Pitts. He leads off all the list here, a phenom of an athlete here. Why did he earn your spot on this list before he's even played NFL down? And kind of what are your expectations for this guy as a rookie?
I think the expectations have to be, given where they drafted him, that he's going to turn in like the best rookie season for a tight end we've ever seen. I mean, when you draft a guy 4th overall, certainly you have lofty expectations. Like you're not just looking for a quality player. Like this is, you see a guy who can be a perennial Pro Bowl caliber player, one of the all-time greats, that type of thing. And so I think you look at it with Pitts, and I think that Falcons offense is sort of sneaky intriguing. Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator, comes over. I thought he did a brilliant job of kind of maximizing the talent at his disposal in Tennessee. And so certainly I feel like with their trade of Julio Jones, you look at it and it's like Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts. I mean, those are the guys, right? So I think he's going to have opportunities. I know he's young, and what's fascinating about it is it's generally a tough position for a tight end to kind of come in and be really, really good right away. I mean, if you look at it over the last 20 years, I think Jeremy Shockey has the most yards for a rookie receiving tight end, around 890 or something like that. And
894. Yep, you nailed it.
894. There you go. And then the other one, I believe, was Evan Ingram, who was somewhere in the 700s. And so those are the two guys. Now you look at it with Kyle Pitts, he's getting an extra game, right? So, he certainly can reach those levels or maybe set the record there. And I just think he's in high upside play. Now, we probably should temper expectations given what I just said, where it's hard for those guys to kind of come in and be good right away. But I do think it's set up for him to be sort of an exciting player in that offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Arthur Smith has been great with his tight ends. I mean, Delaney Walker had 5 straight top 5 seasons under him. And this guy, Kyle Pitts, brings so much more athletically to the table. You saw the way he was using Jonnu Smith in the backfield, moving him all over the place. I can't wait to see how he's used. He's going in rounds, late 4th, early 5th for fantasy owners of the tight end 4. So we've never drafted a tight end this high. So the expectations are sky high. If there's ever going to be an outlier, it could be this unicorn type of prospect, getting the Calvin Johnson type of comparisons by many people. So we'll see. The upside is certainly there, though, with this guy. I think he is definitely worthy of being on the top 25 most intriguing players list that you have here. I noticed that your top 13, and it makes sense, is quarterbacks on this list. They're so important to the game. They can have such a big impact on every single position there. So while I might read a little bit of like the organization of there, it's tough to argue the names you picked inside that top 13. And I'd love to dive into a few of them with you, starting with Justin Herbert, especially after this rookie season where he sets the record for rookie passing TDs, 31, trails only Andrew Luck in yardage by just 38 yards for the record on that one too. What do you kind of expect for a sophomore encore here for Justin Herbert? And could he take another step forward?
Yeah, I'm all in on Herbert. I think I do like the analytics and the X's and O's, and certainly those are in his favor. But sometimes, you just watch a guy and you're like, all right, he is a special player with huge upside. He's so fun to watch, the way he maneuvers in the pocket, the way he's willing to take shots downfield. And my big thing with Herbert is I don't think the coaching really helped him that much last year. They were sort of middle of the pack when you look at run pass balance, and they were one of the worst rushing teams in the NFL, where really, if you look at the way they should have maximized their chances at winning last season, it would have been to just kind of put the game in Justin Herbert's hands and see what he could do. They did not do that. And so I think now they have more of a forward-thinking coaching staff here. And then, of course, the offensive line. It was one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL last season. They go out, they sign an all-pro center in Corey Linsley. They used their first-round pick on a left tackle in Rashawn Slater. They add a competent guard in Matt Filer. And then you hope that your veteran right tackle, Brian Bulaga, even if he doesn't stay healthy for the entire season, can give you more snaps than he gave you a year ago. So I just add all those things up. And I know the Chargers sometimes feel cursed, and it's like everyone jumps on their bandwagon every offseason, and then their season falls apart and everyone gets injured. And they're saying, why are you guys doing this to us again? But I just feel like Herbert is going to be another level for them. And, he's a player I will probably, in my own fantasy drafts, probably overdraft just because I like him so much. And he's the guy I would love to have on my teams because I love watching him play. But, man, I do think there is big-time upside with him, where we could be looking at it at the end of the season saying this is one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. His arm, I think, is right up there with the best of them. In that offensive line, as you mentioned, could really unlock that even further if he gets a couple more seconds behind there to let those routes develop even further, and the play calling, all those things you mentioned. I'm with you. I actually drafted him in my first experts league in WEI Boston Sports Radio League earlier, just a week ago. He felt like the round 10, and I couldn't pass it up there. Absolutely love that value. I think you actually even listed them number 5 in your overall offenses for this year, right?
I did. Yes, I did. I put together a list just ranking all 32. And that was the surprise pick that caught people a little bit off guard. Now, listen, there certainly are concerns. They've got some older guys on the offensive line. So if they suffer some bad injury luck, it's not like they have great depth there. And that could certainly be an issue. And then it is a new offensive coordinator. They bring over Joe Lombardi from the Saints. And, that's not a key simple offense. That's a very complex offense. They use a lot of different personnel groupings, a high volume of plays. And so there could be a little bit of a transition period. And I hope they don't kind of overthink it, because I do think they have talented players where they don't need to overthink it, where they can, you want those guys playing fast and using their talent. So those are some of the concerns I have. But again, like I said, I do feel like they have the upside with the weapons that Justin Herbert has, the improved offensive line, and just his natural talent.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I'm going all in. I think all their prices in general as an offense are a bit too low, with us Eckler sometimes falling to round 2 in running back range, whether it's Mike Williams falling to around 9-10. I think he could really have that breakout we've been waiting for 5 years. And Keenan Allen, of course, always goes underappreciated, in my opinion, one of the best route runners in the game. So I'm with you. I'm loading up on Chargers everywhere this year. I think they are definitely going to explode. Another sophomore QB on your list, and that's Tua, starting off your top 5, number 5 on your list. And I think I have to agree with you because I cannot wait to see which way this one goes. It could go one, I think it's going to go one way, like completely brilliant, or the exact opposite and be a complete dumpster fire. I don't know if there's going to be much middle ground here with Tua, but I do expect the be on the more of the positive side myself. So I can't wait to see what happens in year 2, especially given they've added some nice weaponry, reports that he's killing it downfield. What do you kind of expect from Tua, and what makes him so intriguing to you?
Yeah, I think it's just what you said, right? It could go in one of two ways. Either we could be saying, wow, he took a big leap in his second season. The Dolphins compete for the division or are a playoff team, and they feel great about their core going forward. Or it could go in the other direction where he struggles, and you say, all right, they've got an interesting roster. They've got a head coach who doesn't seem like the most patient man in the world with some of the moves they make. So they could be a team that all of a sudden you go into the offseason and say they could do something really drastic at the quarterback position after 2 seasons with Tua. So if you look at it analytically with him, I think a lot of us, and myself included, you watched him last year and you thought, all right, this isn't the most impressive performance, especially when you compare how the offense performed with Ryan Fitzpatrick to how it performed when Tua was in there. You say, all right, they're definitely taking a step back, and he doesn't look like he's ready for this moment. Now, if you look at it analytically and you just compare it to what rookie quarterbacks tend to do, to it in line with kind of what you would expect from an average rookie season, maybe even slightly above average. So that's why it's always good to have that context where you say, it's hard to be a rookie and come in and play well right away. You see guys who went on to have pretty good careers who their rookie seasons were sort of in line. I'm bullish, I'm with it. I have my concerns about some stuff with Tua, just kind of in terms of what does he do that kind of is special, or what are his rare skills that are really going to lead him to produce a very good offense there. Maybe it's accuracy, and they have kind of supported him with some of those downfield threats there with Jalen Waddle and Will Fuller. So I think he's got weapons around him for sure, and they want to push the ball downfield. I have questions about their offensive line. They really are counting on young players to develop there. So maybe that'll happen and he'll make the leap. But, he's not a guy that I personally will be targeting. I think there's a chance there that he's really good, but there are other guys that I would rather have over him.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I haven't landed him too often in my early fantasy drafts because, I as you said, it's very intriguing to see where this goes. It's one of the top storylines of the season. Fantasy-wise, I don't want to hitch my wagon to that, though, given how variant it could go. The ceiling's sky high, but the floor is also incredibly low. And I think there's some people with similar ceilings, but a little bit higher floors baked into them. So I won't be targeting, but I will certainly be watching him in this offense. And I really love Jalen Watt. I cannot wait to see what he does and how he unlocks everything within this offense. Another guy on your list, again, all the names are going to be quarterbacks, given how important they are. So this is kind of turning into a QB preview for fantasy, but I love it because they are crucial. And that's Lamar Jackson. I agree he needs to be in top 5, given that MVP season in 2019 looked like he was ready to take the league by storm, takes a little bit of a step back, but they add some offensive firepower. So do you think we're going to get that 2019 MVP Lamar, or what are your expectations for this guy?
Yeah, they've had sort of a weird, would have had this conversation a little bit more bullish. I do have some concerns. Rashad Bateman, the rookie wide receiver, has the injury, and he's probably could miss the beginning of the season. Sammy Watkins was not a great player with the Chiefs, and I would say it would be unlikely to kind of go from the Chiefs offense to the Ravens offense and be a better player. You might get some more opportunities just because you're not dealing with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, but I don't know that he's going to unlock a lot of things for them. And they really put all their eggs in kind of the offensive line basket. They said, we don't think we need to do anything really crazy at wide receiver. We'll try to improve there a little bit, but really the big changes for them are on the offensive line, adding Kevin Zeitler, and then they trade Orlando Brown there. And so that shakeup, it could be better. It could be worse. I'm not sure. So, just being at their camp, I don't get the sense that it's going to be a drastic change what they do offensively, schematically with the passing offense. I think anyone who's expecting that is probably going to be disappointed. Now, having said that, I think we probably kind of overstate how bad it is. When you looked at it, there were games where you said, shoot, they look terrible. Like, did these guys just meet 5 minutes before kickoff, or what's going on here? But when you look at it statistically, it was at 10 to 15. With Lamar, you're getting the run game baked in there. I think they're going to be a top 5 rushing offense every year just because they're so tough to defend, with him being a part of the run game. But with the passing game, I'm sort of in wait and see mode a little bit with them.
Yeah, I think that's very fair to be. I was hoping Rashad Bateman could be that big impact wide receiver they got. I've seen a lot of the comparisons of him to Stephon Diggs in his game and the way he can get open. But of course, this groin injury happens, and that delay could take its toll without that time to build that rapport and forge it. So we will find out there for sure. Certainly intriguing to see how he can bounce back and rebound, though. Perhaps the player I'm most excited to hear your take on within your list, and that's Matthew Stafford, who you have at number 3 on your most intriguing players of 2021, and seeing how this marriage will be with Sean McVay. So I can't wait to see what unfolds with the LA Rams this year. I'd love to hear your opinion of how you see this offense and Stafford evolving in 2021.
Yeah, I'm pretty bullish on the Rams. I think that, normally I would look at this and kind of criticize the head coach and say, you're just blaming the struggles on the quarterback here. But I think in this case, you kind of watch their games, and the takeaway that Sean McVay obviously had was that Jared Goff was holding the offense back a little bit, and that if he can upgrade a quarterback, it can take the offense to another level. And I think that passes kind of what a lot of us see, right? When you watch the Rams, you think, all right, it's schemed up great. They're putting the quarterback in position to succeed, but the quarterback may have a little bit of a limited ceiling. And I haven't been the biggest Stafford guy, over the years. I don't think he's not in the class of the top tier quarterbacks, or certainly they would have won a playoff game at some point over the last 12 years. And that did not happen. Not that it's all his fault, but I do think he's sort of in that next tier where the talent is undeniable. The arm is undeniable. And I think it's just an offense where McVay, even when they've struggled, they've still sort of been, like I said, mediocre to above average. I think they finished in the top 10 in offensive efficiency in 3 out of 4 years under Sean McVay. So I think you look at that and you look at the upgrade there at quarterback, and I think Stafford's going to have a big year if their offensive line can hold up. I do have some concerns about that offensive line, but again, I think they do stuff schematically to help the offensive line, whether it's misdirection, whether it's bootlegs, whether it's play action, getting Stafford outside the pocket, all those things that they do really help the offensive line. And I think Stafford is going to have a good season.
Yeah, absolutely. And something you cited in your playbook that I absolutely loved is how they clearly targeted 2 things about Stafford: his ability to perform under pressure, and, as you mentioned, the offensive line. That's going to be an important trait. Well, under pressure, Goff ranked 31st last year, whereas Stafford ranked 7th. Meanwhile, also the play action, Goff ran the 3rd most play action plays, as you mentioned, but only ranked 24th in expected points per play action play. Meanwhile, Stafford, in that same exact category, ranked 2nd, according to all your deep dives in these analytics. So clearly they had these 2 target areas in mind. Clearly Stafford, according to the numbers, is significantly better than Goff in these areas. And that might just be all they need. Even as you said, I'm with you. I don't know if Stafford's in that top tier of QBs, but in just those 2 facets, given everything else they have around him, given the coach, that could be all they need to really take this to the next level. So I can't wait. I really think that offense could lead the league in points, or at least she'll be in the top 3 conversation this year. So I'm very, very excited about this Rams team. You move down the list, then the last 2 players, you got Russell Wilson at number 2. And I'm definitely in agreement. I mean, it was a tale of 2 Wilsons and Seahawks offenses in 2020. We saw them leading the NFL with 34.25 points per game. Second half, they were bottom 10 in this category with just 23.75. Wilson went from 28 TDs, which was insane, in his first 8 to just 12 in the back 8. So clearly there was a big gap in there. It goes from the QB2 in fantasy to QB15 in those two different seasons. What kind of rust do you think we're going to get? What kind of Seahawks offense do you think we're going to get? What are you expecting to see here, Sheil?
Yeah, that second half last season is certainly concerning, and I've written about it. Others have written about it, trying to figure out why that was the case. One factor certainly was strength of schedule in the second half of the year. If you include the playoff game, they play the Rams 3 times, and the Rams, by the second half of the season had the best defense in the NFL. So certainly that was a factor. I think Tyler Lockett was a little bit banged up. I think the offensive line was a little bit banged up. And then you can't, certainly excuse everything with Russell Wilson. I think he didn't play as well as he did earlier in the season. And I think there was an edict from Pete Carroll to kind of make sure you take care of the football. They had a little stretch there in the middle of the year where he turned the ball over quite a bit during a 2-game stretch. And I think if you look at it after that, he did kind of play a little bit more conservative and maybe not turn the ball over as much, but also not produce as much. So, the thing with the Seahawks is you look up at the end of the year, and if you like DVOA or those efficiency stats from Football Outsiders, they're in the top 10 every year. If you look at it with Russell Wilson, 9 seasons with Russell Wilson, in 7 of them, I think they've been in the top 8 in offensive efficiency. And so that's been with a couple different offensive coordinators, different supporting cast, different offensive lines, all those things. So I do think Pete Carroll looked at it and he said, we do want to be a little bit more balanced going forward. He's more of a conservative, defensive-minded coach. And so I do think that's going to be a little bit of the case. I think they want answers in sort of the short and intermediate part of the field where the ball comes out of Russell Wilson's hands a little bit quicker. Certainly, you look at the offensive coordinator they had in Shane Waldron, comes from the McVay tree, if you will, and that's what we just talked about with a lot of the play action, moving the pocket. So I think it could fit Russell Wilson. So I'm just going to kind of bank on history here and say that the Seahawks with Russell Wilson, with the wide receivers and DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, that they are going to have a top 10 offense. Now, in terms of the fantasy stats and kind of the counting numbers, it probably would look a little bit more like what it looked like sort of prior to last season. I think they're going to not be as pass heavy as they were last season. And so it's a tough one to figure. I don't know that there's this sort of giant upside where Russell Wilson's going to be setting career highs for yards and touchdowns. At the same time, I think he's a pretty safe bet to be an above average player.
So one of my rankings, and I imagine, I'm guessing you're going to agree with it, but we'll see, that goes against the consensus here. But based on our conversation, I wonder how you'll feel about it. I have Herbert actually above Wilson in fantasy rankings, and most people would kind of flip-flop those two. Now, if you had those two staring you down the barrel of a gun here, which one would you take in fantasy?
I'm kind of with you. I think the upside is there with Herbert to really be, a top 2 or 3 guy. And I don't know that it's there for Wilson just because of the way that I think they're going to play. And, I don't have Herbert's rushing stats from last year in front of me, but certainly, he's an athletic guy who can pick up yards, whether it's in the option game or whether it's scramble, certainly in the red zone. He can be a factor there. So I don't even know that Russell Wilson has like a huge edge on him in terms of the rushing number. So, yeah, I think just sort of thinking about it for the first time now, if, you were asking me, hey, you're on the clock right now, you have to draft a quarterback, which one of these guys do you want? I think I would probably be more prone to leaning towards Herbert and taking a shot on him.
Nice. And the last quarterback you have on your list, and number 1 on everybody, that's Mr. Aaron Rodgers over there in Green Bay, and makes sense after the circus we've seen this offseason for sure. Now, why is the reigning MVP the number 1 guy for you, and what are kind of your expectations here in Green Bay?
Yeah, it's kind of like you said, right? It was the biggest storyline of the offseason. It was very weird with weird Instagram posts and, all of a sudden it's draft day and we're saying, wait a minute, is Aaron Rodgers going to be on the Packers next year? And, now he's back. And so it's a matter of, he's always an intriguing guy, right? He doesn't mind the attention for sure. He doesn't mind sort of mixing it up and being part of these big storylines or hiding back. And so if you look at it, just sort of, zoom out and take away the drama aspect of it, they're 26-6 over the last 2 seasons. They had the most efficient offense in the NFL last year. He led the NFL in every major statistical passing category. They're bringing back the same play caller. They're bringing back, for the most part, the same supporting cast, maybe the offensive line. They've got to figure some things out. So, the pieces are in place for him to be a monster once again. There's unless you feel like age is going to get to him, there's no real reason why he can't be the same guy that we saw last season. Now, on the other hand of it, there are these sort of, I don't know if intangibles are the right word, but, just sort of the drama surrounding the franchise and the uncertainty around how long he's going to be their quarterback, and certainly his relationship with management and with ownership. Now, does that manifest itself onto the field into a product that's not as good? It probably shouldn't. He's good with the head coach. They're on good terms. He's good with his teammates, it sounds like. And so if I'm betting on it, I would think Aaron Rodgers is going to have a great season, but just the fact that there are all these factors that you have to weigh in, they're going to be must-see TV every week.
I agree 100%. And that last dance narrative of him and Devontae Adams both potentially being out of here and just trying to light it up one last time, I could see those two just going. They already were last year. You get into the goal line and it was just toss it up to Adams, let him score. It seemed like they almost want to just continue to inflate each other's stats. And I think there's going to be more of the same this year. So I'm loving targeting Adams towards the top of the first round. Rodgers as a, mid to later round quarterback, falls right around 6-7. Makes perfect sense. I'm with you. I'm betting on him having a big one with that last dance narrative. Well, the last 2 players I have on this list, because there's so many good defensive players. And again, I encourage everybody to go to The Athletic, check out Sheil's work, especially that playbook, that URL. I told you at the top, make sure to check it out. It'll fill up your whole weekend if you need it to, because it is such great in-depth stuff. But the last 2 guys on this list, and the highest non-QB that you have, is someone you mentioned at the top, Odell Beckham at number 14. His play is typically matched his big personality, given how explosive he is both on and off the field. But his tenure in Cleveland's been a little bit rocky, to say the least, certainly by his standards. So what has OBJ so high on your list, and how do you expect him to play here in 2021?
Yeah, I think he's a guy who, there are reasons to believe the Browns are going to regress this year. I think they were 7-2 in 1-score games last year. I think they had the third easiest schedule in the NFL. And so, if someone makes the argument, hey, they're not going to be as good as they were last year, and kind of slow it down with the hype around the Browns, you can certainly make that case, and it's perfectly reasonable. So I like to look at it the other way. All right, those things are true. What can kind of stave off regression a little bit? And I think Beckham is a guy, he's only 28 years old. It feels like he's been in our life for the last 20 years. But man, 28 years old for a receiver, that should be a guy who is still at the top of his game. And I can't shake the player that this guy was with the Giants, and just sort of his career trajectory was as sort of an all-time great. Now, it hasn't happened. You look at it last year, he wasn't playing well even before the injury. And then, of course, he's coming off the injury. If you look at it 2 years ago, it wasn't the most efficient, the most explosive season. At the same time, he still had 1,000 yards. It's not like he was a bum who was just out there doing nothing. So I just kind of can't quit Odell Beckham Jr., I guess is the factor here. I feel like the coaching staff there is smart, specifically the offensive coaching staff. I think they figured some things out. I think the offensive line is one of the best in the NFL. And I just feel like I'm ready to give it one more year and say, let's see how he looks in this offense now that Baker Mayfield's in his second year in that Kevin Stefanski offense. Let's see if they can find a way to maximize his talent. And let's see if he can have kind of a throwback here where he is all of a sudden, once again, one of the better wide receivers in the NFL. So, and if that doesn't happen, if it goes the other way, then all of a sudden next year you're looking at a player who's probably on another team and who would only be 29 years old at that point. So sort of either way, regardless of how it goes, to me, he's a very intriguing player. Yeah,
I love that. I mean, that's a great point. Either way, we're going to see some fireworks out of Odell Beckham. And I'm absolutely with you too. I hope at least the fact that they were so successful on offense last year without him not necessarily, I don't mean to say puts him in his place, but you kind of get what I mean. Like lets him realize, as good as you are, we can do this without you. So why don't you come in and take us to that next level? I'm hoping, and I think that's exactly what you're getting at. There's all this room for regression with this offense, but then you put in a talent like him. And if he's got his mind right, he's in line with everybody, that offense could be scary. And we get to see him against the Chiefs in week 1. So they're going to need their points. I can't wait for that. That's probably one of my the most intriguing matchups of week 1. That's got to be towards the top of the list. I cannot wait to see that one. And the last guy I want to dive into you with, bell cow running backs are the king in fantasy football. Almost every first round is littered with 11 to 12 of these guys. But you only got one of them here on your intriguing list, and that kind of makes sense to the value of running backs in the real world with the NFL. But the guy you have is Saquon Barkley. So why does he make your list of all the running backs in the NFL, and how do you see him doing in 2021?
Well, I just think his talent is obviously on a level where if he's healthy in the right offense, performing, as kind of maximizing his potential, then he's sort of one of the most special backs we've seen in a long time. Just what he can do in the run game and also as a receiver. But man, there certainly are questions there. I think their offensive line is not very good. That's the way to describe it. It could be one of the worst. Garrett he's going to find creative ways to maximize Saquon Barkley's abilities. And then, of course, Barkley is coming off the injury. So when is he going to be 100% healthy? And then you add on top of all that is that he's looking for a new contract. And it was controversial when they spent a high pick on him in the draft. And now they have to make a decision on whether they want to pay him like one of the most expensive running backs in the entire NFL. So you add all those things together. And as I was just looking at the running backs, I thought, he is kind of a guy who probably belongs on this list.
Yeah, he's got so much, all those storylines you pointed out make complete sense for the intrigue factor for sure. Our early reports are suggesting he's looking like his old self. He's recovered really nicely. I'm really pulling for the guy. He was so fun to watch as a rookie. And I'm really hoping we just get a full 16 game slate of him doing all those things. But I don't know if Jason Garrett's the guy to really, truly unlock that upside. Well, Sheil, this was so amazing. I really, really appreciate your time. I know you've already hinted at the fact that you play fantasy. So I always like to wrap up with writers. And if there's any fantasy questions you have off the top of your mind, whether it's a keeper situation in your specific leagues, whether there's a specific question in fantasy that you just would like a second opinion on, I'm always willing to give it towards the end of the show. So is there any questions that you have for me that I can help answer?
That it's a good question. I haven't kind of dove into the research yet. I think I've got my
Nope.
Yeah, so I haven't dove totally into the research yet, but usually I think I have my drafts on Labor Day weekend. Now, oftentimes I put out some fantasy content for the Athletic, and then my friends know everything. I'm doing that this year. So more mystery to it. So I don't know. Maybe I'll hit you up in a couple of weeks once I start having to make those decisions. But right now I haven't even gotten to that point quite yet.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd love that. You have my email, my number at this point. Feel free to shoot me a message. You kind of highlighted the biggest downfall of having a fantasy football website. All my friends will print out my cheat sheet before the draft and bring it in. And whether they agree with my takes or not, they just love to piss me off and take my guys right ahead of me. So I know exactly what you're saying there for sure. Well, Sheil, this was such a pleasure. I really appreciate you taking the time while you're on your big road trip here to speak with me. Could you just give our listeners one more reminder of where they can connect with you, find your work, and anything you'd like to promote?
Sure. Yeah. Twitter, is just at Sheil Kapadia. Instagram, I've been posting sort of photos and videos from this training camp tour I've been on, and that's also just at Sheil Kapadia. And then, of course, the Athletic, the playbook. It's a 197-page guide, analytics, X's and O's, predictions for every single team. And you can just go to theathletic.com/NFL playbook. If you're not a subscriber, you just go to that link. It'll tell you how you can subscribe at a discounted rate, and you can download that playbook and dive into it before the start of the season.
Absolutely. And I would, again, just reiterate that is an awesome playbook. I've really, really enjoyed it. And as part of an athletic subscription, and that's truly, there's no site that's easier for me to promote. You're now I think the seventh, eighth athletic writer I've had on, because you guys are truly the best coverage in the biz, having a writer dedicated to every team, having so many good, just overarching NFL writers. It's the easiest no-brainer subscription, in my opinion, at the price that you guys have it at. Especially given it includes your playbook right there too. So Sheil, thank you so much again for your time. Best of luck in fantasy this year. Best luck the rest of the summer. And I look forward to the rest of the year. Hopefully we'll talk again next year sometime.